Hi, my name is Mark Latimer, the host of the AI Training Podcast and the founder of Grateful AI. I'm excited to present to you my very special guest, Stella Lee, founder of the Learning Paradox. Thank you so much or Paradox Learning. Did I get that right?
Yes, paradox learning.
Okay. Maybe I'm a little dyslexic, but I
No,
appreciate you being here.
it's actually based on the learning paradox. So you're not like exactly reading
Hmm.
it wrong. It is
Okay.
it's a concept that I'm fascinated about, and yeah, that's kind of how my company name is based on. So
Well, that's a great place to start. Why don't we talk a little bit about what you're doing? And maybe if you want to start with a brief introduction.
yeah.
I read your bio and you're doing some incredible work. So really happy to have you.
Thank you, Mark. Yeah, thanks, and happy to be here. So I am based in Calgary, Alberta, Canada. For those of you that are dialing in from the US, if you start with Montana and go straight up, you will hit me. So I'm at the foothills of the Canadian Rockies. I've been my background is actually coming from the academic side. I was working in the university setting. I got my PhD in computer science, focusing on educational technologies, and after that, I decided to kind of stepped out from the ivory tower and try my hands on corporate learning. And after a few years of that, I decided to start my own consulting firm. I've been running my own consulting practice, Paradox Learning, for the past 10 years. I mostly consult with larger organization, private sector, public sectors, government, and NGOs in all things digital learning and AI related topics. So that's why I'm today.
Amazing. Sounds like your work covers a breadth and depth when it comes to working with organizations. Stella, what are you most excited about?
Wow. I get bored easily, so that hints to consulting with different projects. I'm most excited about it. It's always just going into a project that I'm not 100% sure that I can do it. I think I'm excited that there's a learning curve. There's a process of discovery and working with people that of similar mindsets that are able to look at different, across different domains and different perspectives. I'm always excited I'm an initiator, so I'm really excited about projects that I'm the one that help establish the parameters, is to establish frameworks, to establish process. So right now, I'm most excited about helping organization to assess AI literacy or AI maturity for their workforce.
Interesting. AI
Yeah.
maturity. Can you expand
Yeah.
on literacy and what that means in the context of your work?
Yeah. So I started working on that last year because I was engaged with an organization to help build AI literacy among the staff. And so I start thinking about, what that means and what do I need to do to kind of put some structure around it, right? And a lot of
Mm-hmm.
the conversation has been like since ChatGPT came out 2 years ago. I think a lot of the conversation it's around how to use AI. What kind of tools are out there? How do you use it for the type of work you do? But there's not a lot of conversation that focus on the broader scheme of things, to look at ethical issues, right? To look at to understand the relationship of data to AI, to look at bigger societal impacts, to think about how do we develop policies and to develop critical thinking skills. How do we know to trust AI outputs? How do we evaluate them? So for me, AI literacy encompasses all of these areas. It's not just about the tools or the technology or how to use them or which one to select, but it's about able to understand, to use, but also to critique, to evaluate, and to unpack some of the more nuanced conversations about AI. So to me, that's AI literacy. And it's something, and honestly, Mark, it's been evolving ever since. I started this last year. I've changed my model, my framework a couple of times already, based on people's feedback, based on other use cases. And so if you ask me a year from now, it might be a different definition.
So is it somewhat about how to think about AI and how to kind of interact and grow alongside it?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, that's definitely an element of it. So my model or my framework for AI literacy
Hmm.
has currently I think I have 8 areas or dimensions, if you will. So the first one is AI fundamentals, I call it,
Hmm.
and it's about just understanding the basics, right? The terminologies, the history, what are the basic techniques. And then the second area is called data fluency. So understand the relationship between data and AI. How do you evaluate data? The third area it's called critical thinking and fact checking. It's to, you know, don't take AI outputs at face values, and how do you critically evaluate outputs. And then the
Hmm.
fourth one, it's diverse use cases. So that's to encourage us to, sometimes as learning professionals, I think we focus on just our own domain and we don't look outside. So my take on that is we need to look at diverse use cases, what's happening in transportation, what's happening in healthcare, what's happening in finance, to kind of bring that broader perspective back into our work and back into our workplace. And then, of course, we're educators, so I wanted to add an AI pedagogy. How does pedagogy change in light of AI? And I added a new area this year called assessment, which used to be part of pedagogy, but now we need to look at assessment. How does AI help us assess, give feedback? How do we assess our employees? How do we assess ourselves? How do we assess the organization? And then ethics. Needs no explanation. It's a big topic that we need to definitely pay attention on. And finally, the future of work. How do we look ahead and look at employability? How do we look at our own skill sets and get ready for the change, right? So my framework basically covers the 8 areas that I just mentioned. And so yeah, it is working alongside with AI. It's looking at the bigger issues. It's understanding what it means and some of the technical stuff, but also some of the regulations and societal impact as well.
Sounds quite comprehensive. What are some of
I
the
try.
biggest challenges? It sounds like you're very thorough in your research and trying to, uncover uh, the things that are going to solve these problems. What are the biggest problems that organizations come to you with right now, as far as trying to tackle this?
Yeah. Oh, so yeah, I just to get back to your question about very comprehensive, I think it helps that I leverage my network, my community, people like you. I have conversations all the time. So I think it helps to say, oh, this is what I'm struggling with. This is what my organization is up against, right?
Hmm.
What I've been hearing, I think it's that organizations, well, first of all, I think we're still in the middle of trying to make sense of the technology and how in our own context, right? In our own organizational context, in our own sector, and to kind of get past the hype. Every tech has hype cycle, and I think we're kind of in the middle of that. And so it's kind of gets you all the hype and all the noises out there too. AI conversations tend to be very um, extreme. It's either like it's amazing, it's transforming everything, it's going to be like the new electricity. At the same time, it's the huge negative pushback on like this is going to end us all. This is going to be replacing us, we would have no jobs and huge risk and anxiety and stress. So I think organizations are trying to, and in my work to try to grind them into looking at practically, what we can do. What are the advantage? What are the potentials of AI, right? But also, what are the limitations? What are the challenges that we need to face? And so, organizations are now looking at it from that perspective. It's a huge challenge because you have to think about your current process. You have to think about your current business strategies and what you're trying to do and map and try to not just map AI. It's not something you just bolt on, right? You have to redesign your work process. You have to redesign the way you approach your business. So that's the biggest challenge. And on top of that, you're constantly working with limited resources. You're constantly working with, not having enough, people and budget cuts and increasingly, competitive landscapes globally. So I think just within all the constraints, businesses are trying to figure out what to do with AI. It's the biggest challenge. And how do you practically use it so that it's not just piecemeal, that it's not just happening in one department, one team testing AI, but across the business, if you have to look at it in a holistic way, how does it help? So it's a big task.
Yeah, it's fascinating. It leaves for lots of creative problem solving and discussion and conversation
sure.
around, because there's no easy answer, right?
Yeah, and it's not one size fits all, right? I think
For sure.
that's the challenge too. It's to look at context and what's appropriate within your own context.
There certainly is a lot of education required
For sure.
at
And
all
you are a
levels.
world traveler, so you see it too around the world. I mean,
Yeah.
each country approaches it differently. Each organization approaches it differently as well.
Hmm. Yeah, very, very interesting. When it comes to the tools,
Yeah.
what have you liked when it comes to learning? I'm sure you've tried a number of different things. What technology have you come across that um, serves the learner best,
I
or what do you like?
I mean, it's also about how you use it. Even just with Gemini or Copilot or ChatGPT, you could do so much if you know how to use it.
Mhm.
I mean, I like any of the large language models. I like comparing them, right? Like Claude, it's much better at coding than ChatGPT. But that doesn't mean I cannot. Like, I like to test the limit, and I like to compare, like, what is some interesting differences across different large language models or LLMs. And then there's more task specific tools, right? Like Hygiene that could take my voice. I can speak fluent French and Spanish and Vietnamese, I suppose. It's one of the languages with my own tone, with my own pitch, right? And that's a
Mhm.
very specific use case, and it's quite impressive. But
Mhm.
do I have do I need it on a daily basis? No. But I still look at it as something it's worth exploring. I really like a lot of research tools, right? SciSpace. It's pretty good when I need to look up journal articles, when I need to look up papers, and when I wanted to organize my own research. But in general, honestly, just ChatGPT and Gemini and Copilot serve most of my daily needs. And I use it in such a different ways that some are good, some are less impressive, and some has some gaps. So I think it's a matter of understanding what the shortcomings are and use it with your eyes wide open. Just don't take the output at face values.
That makes a lot of sense. Out of these tools, which one do you
Yeah.
find yourself gravitating to most?
I like comparing between Gemini and ChatGPT. I kind of toggle back and forth with them. I might ask ChatGPT one thing, and I flick it over to Gemini and see what it tells me differently or how
Hmm.
similar they are. For example, if I ask ChatGPT, I'm using a current GPT 4.0. Let's say, what are some common ethical issues in AI, right? And I'm so curious to see what ChatGPT says, and I'm so curious what Gemini says. And I found them to be quite similar. And in a way, they're biased, that they always end with very positive notes about AI. Even though I asked, what are some of the risks? What are some of the things that people are concerned about? And they would list them, but they would always say, but AI, it's a very promising technology. With the right guardrails, it would transform your life. And it's biased in, inherently in promoting AI, right? And so
Yeah.
it's very telling in using the tools, in understanding, okay, yeah, these are built by companies that are for profit. Of course they'll be advocating the use of such tools. um, so
Hmm.
keeping that perspective helped me. But I, just like everybody else, I think because ChatGPT and Gemini and similar tools are general purpose, it serves most of my needs on everything, on a more daily basis, on my daily tasks. Do you have any that you like? Did you have any
Um,
recommendations?
I use. Are you using the voice components of these tools much? Are you having
Yeah,
conversations with
yeah,
them?
I do. I do.
Maybe you can talk to that experience because I do it a lot. But I'm curious to know,
Oh,
uh, how you use the conversational aspect of it.
so I'm a French language learner. So I use the voice component of GPT 4.0 to help me practice French. It's
Okay.
usually out of panic, like, oh no, I have a French lesson in an hour. I need to practice now. So I think it's great because wow, for people that don't normally have access to a native speaker, right? I happen to have one. My partner is French, but even that doesn't mean he's available to practice all the time. And what I like about it is that I can say, I need to focusing on practicing my French on this specific topic. Help me, give me some questions, and it will give me questions. And what I like about it too is I liked that it gives me a transcript of the conversation, especially in a foreign
Mhm.
language when I can't understand everything. I cannot hear every word. In French, it's particularly difficult because they have this thing called liaison. So they kind of, the two words kind of merge, right? You say it
Mhm.
together. So I can't always hear the differences, right? I cannot hear every single word, but reading it, I was like, oh, that's what it said. That's what it means. And so that helped reinforce my learning. And I just love the spon- the spontaneous conversation part of it. Like, and I don't need to sit and spend 30 minutes, right? Sometimes I can just be like, oh, I forgot how to say this thing. Help me again. And so it's that very quick um, learning. When I remember something, I can do it. There's a bit of a lag, I find sometimes. I also find that it hits a limit, and it also randomly doesn't work, so it's not perfect. Also, I think sometimes it's quite limited. It's quite limiting in help. Like if I say correct my mistakes or give me some feedback, it it's hit or miss. I haven't found it to be really great yet, but it's, and then perhaps it's coming from me. Maybe I'm not being specific enough, right? In terms of asking for
Mhm.
feedback, which also helped me to think about, as a learner, how can I ask for feedback, not just with AI tools, but with humans as well. um, how do I communicate better? I think prompt engineering in general help us to communicate better, right? Even amongst other people, it's perhaps I'm not asking the right question, perhaps I'm not specific enough, perhaps I need to ask it a different way. So that's my experience. What about
Mm.
you? Do you agree, disagree, different perspective?
I have used it for language learning as well,
Yeah. What are you
for
learning?
Spanish.
Okay.
Spanish. Yeah.
Okay.
And I found it really useful. Like
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
very
Yeah.
iterative, and
Yeah.
to be
Yeah.
able to speak out loud and get feedback on
Yeah.
pronunciation,
Yeah.
that's incredible. Like
It's
I've
quite
been
good.
using.
They're quite tolerant in my very bad French too. Like even if I really not great at the pronunciation, it catches.
And I find it also, they do quite a good job of um, giving you examples, and it's just very flexible. And if you
Yes. Yeah.
understand how to use it for learning a language, then it kind of opens up opportunities to, explore learning other topics. Like
Yeah.
it's a pretty good test of the system.
Yeah.
So
How
it's,
regionalized is the Spanish though? Like, can you say I want Latin American Spanish?
I
Would
think
it
so.
switch? Okay.
I think so. I think it's got enough intelligence there. One of the things that I use ChatGPT a lot for is I got a lot of ideas constantly.
Yeah.
And to brainstorm with someone
Yes.
and
Yes.
get feedback, I I don't know how many, I wish I knew how many hours I've logged of conversational dialogue with it, but I like to go rollerblading, and I'll do different, hands-free activities. And if I
Mm.
need something,
Yeah.
then I'll usually have a conversation with it and get the output and then copy and paste what I need. But I do a lot of it with just dialogue. And it's, from a morning check-in, I've got kind of a
Yeah.
through line of, I know that it's looking at all of the things that I've talked about, so I
Yeah.
can
Yeah.
pull from different threads. Yeah,
And
it's
this is
been
all
really, really helpful.
to voice interface. Do you do it when you say you're rollerblading? I imagine you're doing like voice and not like interacting with your
No,
phone.
yeah, so I'll I use the ChatGPT app
Yeah.
with the um, just the voice button, and then
Nice.
I'll
Yeah.
hold my phone and I'll
Yeah.
have my earbuds in, and that's
While you're
enough to
rollerblading.
get,
Yeah.
yeah, that's enough to get so much done and
Nice.
work through
Nice. Yeah.
things where, as a solo entrepreneur, you often don't have the iterative team that you might
Yeah.
have to
Yeah.
just throw off ideas constantly and refine ideas. Um, so yeah, I find it a very good creative collaborator, if that makes sense.
It sounds like have you heard of the AI pin by Humane?
Um, I may have come across it. Tell me more.
Yeah. So it's a wearable. Its brand is Wearable AI.
Oh yeah,
It's a little pin
yeah,
by Humane, uh, and it's apparently it's the next wave of AI. It's wearable tech, and you can talk to it. It has a camera. It can capture like videos and imageries, and I think the idea is that it helps you manage your everyday chores or capture ideas without using your phone.
do we need new hardware though? Is the iPhone
I
not
I
like
I,
enough, you know?
I suppose
I
if you
like,
have, I don't know, a few $1,000s to throw away. I don't know. I'm
uh,
just fascinated about the whole wearable movement. Adding AI to them. I am very minimalistic. My phone is more than sufficient. I don't even have an iPad.
sure.
But some people loved it. Some people really like the hands-free experience.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I'm just curious in watching this space.
So, I don't know why this popped up, but I thought of this like clown nose AI that like does everything for you. it has a camera on it, but you just have to wear it on your nose. And it's like,
Oh, like
sure,
a red nose
sure.
thing. Yeah,
Oh, it doesn't have to
yeah.
be red. You can get your own different
Match your
different
clothes. Yeah,
colors,
right, right.
but it does everything for you. You just need to wear it on your nose. And it's like, well,
Oh, and it's also double up as like a mask for like COVID, right? So you
sure,
can
yeah,
like,
it could have a little screen.
yeah,
But this idea of like a pin,
yeah,
for me personally, I don't, if I even had anything here, it would kind of hang my shirt a little bit, even if it was super light. So I'm not crazy about that. I wouldn't mind
yeah,
maybe a button
yeah. My
that,
my my worry will be it will end up in my washer. Just I'll forget it, and it will like in the washing machine, and that's it.
I, I think for voice, you can do a lot with a phone, right? If,
Agreed.
if it's, but I know they're trying to do some other stuff with visualizing what you can see and,
Yeah,
maybe glasses are a better function for that. Um, I could see people wearing glasses
that's
because
I've seen
it's more
those
like a
too. Yeah.
sunglasses or an accessory, right?
Yeah, it's
Um,
already, and it's also something like you're already used to having on your face, right? Like people are used to wearing
yeah.
sunglasses, so it's not like an additional thing added on that you're
To
not used
contrast
to.
it
Yeah,
with the clown nose, that would look ridiculous. But glasses, you see them all the time. So
I don't know. I'm kind of liking the idea of the clown nose.
I would love to see a spoof commercial for this company that's like the newest thing. The
The newest
uh,
thing,
yeah, AI nose. You just put it there and
enhanced olfactory senses.
yeah,
Maybe
exactly.
it would
Increases your
identify, yeah, different smell for you, and
or
give you
distance of
description.
smell. You can, more like a
Oh,
dog. You could enhance your smell too. Like maybe you don't want to. That would
I
that
was
would
gonna
be
say, do I want
too
to
too
though?
powerful. Too powerful.
I want to
Oh,
block it
that's
off.
hilarious.
No, no. I
Uh,
mean, it is definitely a space that I mean, kind of paying attention. It's wearable AI. Yeah.
yeah. Well, very very fascinating. So tell me, what else is going on? What's coming up for you? I know you've got a number of different projects. What upcoming things are you excited about?
Well, I'm about to launch my AI literacy course with in partnership with Athabasca University, which is online university here in Canada. So we're gonna launch it in October. So as you know, creating a course, it's so much work. So
Yeah,
there's always pieces of things I need to take care of. And writing about AI, it's tremendously difficult because things change. Which example do I use? It's still relevant in a couple months' time, right?
hmm,
I've started writing in March this year. I already have to change things. References are already broken, right? Links has already changed. So, but at the same time, I'm very excited because it's a pilot course. I am
hmm.
curious to get some feedback. This is for graduate students, but the intention is that we're going to open it up once the pilot is done and see how the feedback is. So that's one project that I can talk about, and I'm looking forward to it.
That's awesome. Yeah, it's challenging when teaching on a topic that moves very quickly
But
because
also maybe
there
that is
is
the teaching point, right? That
yeah,
like here's an example why we have to teach this now because it's changed, but the change also it's part of the teaching as well. But yeah,
right.
it's not easy.
Because depending on, you wouldn't want to share something that isn't relevant anymore, but there's a lesson in that, as long as it's
Right.
prefaced, I
Correct.
suppose, with this information is constantly changing, but it
Yeah.
doesn't mean we're not going to teach it to you because, you know, if, if we keep waiting, then there's never a point at which you jump in to
Right.
get the information.
100%. But also at the same time, like the foundational concepts won't change, right?
Right.
Ethics. It's ethics. The what is deemed an ethical challenge in AI might change, because like AI companies are aware of ethical issues too. Government is aware, organizations are aware, so they are constantly trying to address this issue. So if I say, oh, there's a lack of representation in these image generation tools, they are already working on how do we increase, how do they overcome that? And in some
Mhm.
instances, they might have overcompensated, right? In the case of Google image, I think they generated imageries that are diverse when there's no diversity. The example I think that's all over the internet is somebody asked Google image to generate American founding fathers like George Washington's and all the, of that is an example. But then they generated like an Asian woman and an Aboriginal, person, which was not true as American founding fathers. But they were like, oh, but we need to be diverse, so they just they cannot generate four white guys. They need to like mix it all in. But I'm like, that is not true. So so it created a new set of ethical issues
Mhm.
that we need to talk about, as opposed to the old set of ethical issue, which is the lack of representation. It is also equally problematic when you overcompensate and you just use representation without context. So the ethical issues change, but ethics, we need to know what it means, right? And how do you um, unpack that, and how do you you know provide solutions for that?
Yeah, it's an interesting topic. The the idea of ethics, especially with facial recognition. I met a guy
Yeah,
yesterday at a startup investor event here in San
yeah.
Fran, and he's from Germany. He flew in just for this, and
Wow, it's
uh,
a long way.
they they have created some technology that lets you it identifies blood flow, so it can
Mm,
tell if it's a like a hey gen video versus
yeah.
a real video. And they've got some
Okay.
other technology, but they're trying to you know figure out what's deep fake or not.
Right.
Um,
Okay.
on the image side, did you see Grok and how all these images have been generated that are just like ridiculous, but they're also violating all kinds of copyright laws. What do you
Oh,
think about
is it like the mermaid Jesus imageries? Is it those that's making
um,
the rhymes on the internet? What did they have combined ridiculous humans with
like
animals?
Disney characters doing things that they're not supposed to, um, or
Okay.
like
Okay.
just you're not most AI tools don't allow you to create the likeness of something identically
Oh, right.
because if you asked maybe ChatGPT for a Disney character, they shouldn't maybe be allowed to because Disney has all kinds of rules on all of their characters. But uh,
Oh, that's
this
right. Because if you
this
ask ChatGPT to create like a Star Wars character, it would say, "Sorry,
yeah,
um, we
but
can't." Yeah.
this policing idea of like which images are or aren't allowed,
Yeah.
uh, how is that measured? Right? There is going to be um, gates on what tools can do, and then other tools will be able to do them. So
What's
will
the
there be like a
criteria for
yeah?
how are you how is one company to say which images are okay, which ones aren't?
Especially if it's okay, this is a tool for creativity and
Yeah.
expression, or like labeled as art. When does art? There was a picture of Trump and Kamala, and Trump was pregnant, and he had her hand on her stomach, and that was it looked real, right?
Oh, I have no doubt.
So, but that falls into possibly political satire, which is okay. So like it's like this huge
Oh,
gray
okay.
area.
That's an interesting classification. Okay.
Um, how do you see companies navigating this? I know it's a tough question, but
Oh yeah, I mean, like the shrimp Jesus image memes. It's another one that I just discovered this by accident. Somebody was like sending this to me, and I like, oh, this is all over the internet. I was like, really?
mm,
And how do you even know which one? Like, and at the same time, image creators have huge incentives now because, like that shrimp Jesus image went viral, right? And 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 that also could mean income being generated for the creator. So they have
mm,
incentives to create imageries that are ridiculous and just to see which one hits. And with tools like Midjourney and DALL-E, there's so little at stake. Like we can generate thousands of imageries uh, and be as ridiculous as we want and put it all out there and just see which one get the most hits. So on one hand, there's actually incentives for people to do a lot more of these kind of things now. And on the other
mm,
hand, we don't have any copyright law even to protect the original creators by saying, "Oh, these are violating copyright issues." So the onus is now put on organizations and individuals to push back because we don't have any regulations. We get more people wanted to do this kind of thing, and it's very difficult. I think unless you start, I think it has to start with first educating people why this is harmful, and
mm,
because I think it's we're still trying to understand like what does this mean, who's
mm,
being impacted or undermined or who is being harmed through this process, right?
mm.
Until we have that level of understanding and education, I don't think there's much we can do about it. What do you think?
Yeah, I think the uh, technology landscape feels a little like a wild, wild west, especially with AI,
Totally.
where
Yeah.
they're just breaking things as they go and then kind of self-correcting
Yeah.
um, because there's a lot of uncertainty, but nobody wants to be late to the party. So we'll
Yeah.
take
And there's
the
such an
lawsuit, we'll take
urgency.
the
Yeah.
penalty.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, we'll
Yeah.
get the attention, the PR attention for our mistake might outweigh the cost because people are talking about our tool. So we make a bad image here or there, and but everyone's talking about it. What our
Yeah.
platform did, right?
Exactly. Bad
So how
publicity.
much of
It's
it is
still, yeah,
how much of
it's
it is
still good.
strategic and is
Yeah.
just carelessness? I don't know.
Yeah. And I think until there's regulations in place, it's very difficult to push back. I mean, as a consumer, of course, I can also choose not to consume these imageries. I can choose not to create them. But
Mhm.
you can't without actual regulation, you can police the public.
Yeah, and when people start making AI movies, as they've already started to, with
Yeah.
just their words and creating things, I think there's going to be a big appetite for seeing people's a small group of creators just creating something that the world has never seen before, and people are going to want to uh, reciprocate that with more interesting creative work. So I think as much as it's a technology revolution,
Yeah.
it will be an artistic one, full of wild ideas.
Yeah, I think in a way it's I like seeing new genre being created. I like seeing
Mm,
the fact that these tools are much more accessible to people than
mm,
ever. Like, you think back 20 years ago creating a movie, it's unless you have a budget, right? Unless it's not accessible to people. It's the same with every technology. If you can place it in the hands of people, like making music, it didn't used to be accessible, or even writing books, it didn't used to be accessible to the general public. So I
mm,
like the fact that technology actually removed that barrier of access. If you're a creator, you could create art, you can make music, you can make films. I think that's a wonderful thing to do. But at the same time, you know, we need to talk about quality too. Like, remember when desktop publishing first came about, or remember when web HTML became, a thing? Um, Remember how many terrible websites are out there, and how many websites
Yeah.
that had like big graphics, awful animated gifs, that everything's blinking and moving, and like there's no sense of design, no understanding of color theory, no understanding about visual design. I think like those principles still hold true. Same with movies. Like there are principles about making a good movie, and that still hold true. But until I think we're gonna get a deluge of really everything, right? We're just gonna get flooded. It's like visual arts right now with Mid Journey and everything else. Like we get so many imageries, and a lot of them are frankly quite awful. And until we develop a better taste on these new forms of art, then I think then the bad ones is gonna disappear, and then we will emerge with a new form and with better quality. But that's gonna take time.
I definitely agree with you that the principles that
Yeah,
have been around for a long time, whether they be
yeah,
design, learning, these foundational things are going
yeah,
to, regardless what happens, be a through line. Even business
yes,
models, they still need to make
yeah,
sense.
yeah,
They can include
exactly.
AI, but there's foundational stuff that you need to understand. And
Yeah, like
um,
you're selling a product or service, you still have to meet a need of your target
mhm,
consumers. AI is not going to help you. Like you can add more AI if you're not meeting the needs of your target market. You're still not selling your product. You're still not selling your
right.
service. Like you can add all the AI you want. Same with education, and same with every domain. The principles need to be there. It need to be validated before you think about AI. In fact, when I work with clients, I don't start with AI, and they would often come and say, we need to do AI, we need to put AI on our business. I'm like, why? Do you need it? Do you really need it? So I think the first question is like, do you even need AI? I know there's a race that we need to keep up with the Joneses. We need to make sure we are AI enabled, but at the same time we need to kind of calm down and say what's the real reason, like what is it doing to you. Don't forget, AI also have an opportunity cost. Like by investing in AI, you're forsaking something else. AI also has an environmental impact. It's using up tremendous electricity, and it's depleting natural resources as well. So we need to think about those things too, right?
Mhm. Yeah, it's a topic full of different challenges and opportunities, and I just want to say thank you so much. This has been a wonderful conversation. I've learned a lot. And where can people reach you if they'd like to follow up or learn more about your work?
My website is paradoxlearning.com, and I'm most active on LinkedIn. Just search for Stella Lee. My last name is Lee, and I often have great conversations on there. So yeah, reach out to me.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for your time, Stella. This has been a lot of fun. This has been the AI
Yeah,
Training Podcast, and that's the show. Thank you.
thanks, Mark.